Ladies, what is your "he is probably crazy" red flag? Story 1. When he claims to have PTSD from Afghanistan, has nightmares so real he chokes you in his sleep, is violently racist towards anyone vaguely Middle Eastern looking, yet it turns out he never made it past week 2 of basic training. I feel sorry for my sister-in-law. Stolen valor. I bought the same guy a drink at the bar a month apart because he was on his way to the Middle East or some shit. I'm not even a fan of the military. He was alone and I figured he could use a drink before leaving. Then, during the second one, I realized he should have already left according to his first story, and that he was now telling me he had to do boot camp in Iraq. I ordered 2 shots of Jameson, took both, and walked away. Story 2. Met a guy on an online dating website, had a few phone calls with him, and things seemed good. Then he tells me he had a favorite pair of pants when he was in high school. He wore them every day, until they became too ragged to wear. Then he started wearing them under his normal pants. Every day. Still wearing them 10 years later, under his pants. I noped the fuck out of there. Story 3. Spoke to him once on the phone. He was at a mutual friend's house on holiday. I said, "Hi, how are you?" He made a high-pitched giggle and handed the phone back to my friend. She gave him my address. She and I exchanged packages in the mail. She was in Germany, I'm in Australia. And he started sending me letters and little gifts. I start getting calls from customs because he's apparently sending me jewelry without paying the right amount of tax on it. I tell them to send it back. On the 1-year anniversary of our phone conversation, he sends me a floral arrangement via Interflora that's as tall as me with 18 red and white roses. White for my youth and purity, red for blood, and 18 because that was my age. He was a lot older. This is when I got the police involved. He continued to send me messages that he loved me, forgave me for involving police, that he didn't mind that I had a boyfriend, who I was with before I even knew this nutter existed, because my boyfriend would understand that he and I were meant to be together. We were meant to be because we had the same blood type. He followed my favorite band around Europe, getting his photos taken with them in a t-shirt bearing my name along with their song lyrics. He said he knew where I lived, and that he was coming to steal me away. Customs called me after intercepting more packages from him. They contained blood. The police blocked him from entry to the country, and I didn't think any more about it until about a year later. I was watching Border Patrol, and I saw him arriving at Sydney Airport and being detained by police before being deported. My heart froze. Story 4. My girlfriend's sister was dating a guy for about a month, and all of us thought he was a great guy. Until she let slip one evening that he had withdrawn $30,000 out of God knows where in the past 4 months to fuel his gambling habit. He is 18 and at university. She didn't seem to think this was a red flag, though. Story 5. I was once dating a guy who was a bit shy and very sweet, but lacked self-confidence. After 4 very fun dates, he suddenly became distant, seemed down, and we stopped dating. Cut to 7 weeks later, I'm dating some other guy. After 3 dates, he suddenly asks out of nowhere, "How does it feel that I won you over?" Confused, I asked what he meant. He explained he took down, as he called it, the guy I was dating earlier by feeding him lies about me, just dating him out of pity, so that his self-confidence would be crushed and he would stop dating me. He said this as if he was proud of it, and I should be impressed. He then claimed to have the right for his first time as a reward. No first times were had that evening. After the date with Mr. Douchebag, I went back to the guy I dated first. I told him I knew what happened, and we started dating again. Let's just say that this time a first time did happen a few days afterwards. We have been together for 5.5 years now. Story 6. Refusal to take responsibility for anything that has ever gone wrong in their life. This includes failed relationships, failed classes, financial mismanagement, car accidents, work issues, etc. Admittedly, things just happen, and some situations are out of our control. What is a red flag to me is a lifelong trend of this and no self-reflection. Story 7. I was with a bunch of friends at a bar getting drunk, and towards the end of the night, everyone left except for one of their friends I had just met that night. He ordered us another drink, and I reluctantly stayed. Then he asked me to come back to his home, and I told him no. He asked over and over again, and then started saying, "It's not like I'm going to rape you." He said this over and over, and I got the fuck out and left. I need to mention that he was the only guy at the bar wearing a salmon-colored Izod shirt. Story 8. when he wouldn't let me wear shorts because no one should be able to see that but me. Sadly, this didn't actually strike me as crazy or possessive until after the relationship ended. The only proper response to this is to look him straight in the eye and tell him, "I like shorts! They're comfy and easy to wear!" and then send out your rattata. Story 9. Save yourself a lot of pain and heartache. If he wakes up in the morning and starts drinking, then continues to drink all day, run far away and don't turn back. Living with an alcoholic is the worst nightmare that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Story 10. Once I started talking to this new guy. I sent him a text saying I was going to go home and change and get my car and I would be over. And he flipped out saying, "Oh my god, if it's such a chore, then don't come out." Followed by, "You're probably stalling to F your ex," and then some other statements. Side note, we have been talking a week and never once have any of these problems arisen. So yeah, a red flag that he is probably crazy. I didn't have my car because my cousin was driving, and the rest of the next hour or so was him sending me screenshots of our past conversations, explaining how I was the liar, and I said I'd come hang out. After, I told him that I didn't think we should hang out anymore. For obvious reasons, I'd like to stay alive. Story 11. First date. He's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Rabbit runs across the road. He aims for it and misses it, and he is cursing himself out because he missed squishing the rabbit. Like road rage style cussing. My spidey sense goes off. I tell him that I don't like this, probably too loudly. He gives me the most cold lizard-eyed look and says, "Dumb animals don't have feelings. Animals don't feel pain." I say, "Pull over the fucking car. Let me out now." He pulled over, but at first refused to let me leave. I inform him that this is the kind of that serial killers think as kids. Animals definitely feel pain, and this date is over. Eventually, he called me a psycho bitch and let me out of the car. I happily walked the 1.5 miles home. It was daylight, and I knew the walk well. My mom always told me to watch out for guys who got off on hurting animals, because they're the kind of guy to beat up their own kids. I just never thought I'd get the ultimate deal breaker less than 20 minutes into the date like that. Story 12. I was dating a guy who may fit this criteria. We'll call him Romero, because that's his name. We dated in high school briefly. He moved to Texas for 3 years. He moved back to New Jersey, for me. He says this. Once he moves to New Jersey, on the first day of his arrival, he asks me for a place to stay. I barely knew the guy anymore. He stays a week. I am still living with my mom. He won't leave. We, my entire family, politely ask him. He says it is because he is part of our family now. He sits down for dinner with us even when we ask him not to. He sleeps in my bed when I sleep out. I sleep at my current boyfriend's house every night. He just won't leave. I break and tell him if he doesn't leave, I'm calling the cops. By this point in time, my sister, 9 years old, has called me 3 times complaining that he walks around the house naked. My brother tells me that he spends hours in my room smelling my shit. Not literally, you get it. He agrees to leave after professing how he wants to touch my body and how he loves me so. Okay, whatever. He's gone at least. Nope. I come home that night from a friend's house and he is there. Nobody invited him in. No one even knew he was in the house. He is eating food from the fridge and tells me he is part of our family now, and you can't kick family out of the house. It's Christmas morning, around 5 a.m., so my family is waking up. He asks where his presents are. I kicked him out again, forcefully, like push out of the door. Later that evening, I went over to my father's house. My dad was out of town, but he kept his keys in the mailbox for me. He is in there, sitting on the couch watching TV, like nothing is wrong. I tell him he broke into my dad's house and that I'm going to call the police. He threatens suicide. He follows me to Tennessee for a music festival, and after that, I don't hear from him. I don't know where he lives now. Eek. Story 13. If he gets into the school system and spends countless hours looking through student pictures to find your name just so he can add you on Skype, then he's probably crazy. Trust me. Oh, and if he finds your Facebook, becomes friends with your friends to get your phone number and messages you every few hours, you can bet he's crazy. They were 2 different people. Story 14. Was still living with my parents at the time and broke up with this guy. Went to my night class at college and came home to find him on my couch crying to my mom about how I broke his heart. The next week, he tried to break into my car when I was leaving work. Story 15. I usually lurk, but had to come out of hiding to share. I knew this guy, we'll call him Adam, in middle school, but we became friends around our freshman year. We had a few classes together and would hang out after school in groups with other mutual friends, including my boyfriend at the time. One day, out of the blue, I got a text from Adam. In this text, Adam confesses his love for me. We weren't that close as friends, never hung out alone. I don't believe I ever gave him a reason to think that I had those kinds of feelings for him. I tell him that while I am flattered, I don't have the same feelings. I try to let him down easily. Adam takes it hard. He avoided me in class and stopped hanging out with our friends. After a month or so, things go back to normal. This is where the red flags come up. I started getting flowers delivered to my house. They're from Adam. After the 4th delivery, I called the florist and asked him to stop having flowers sent to me. Then I get envelopes full of torn petals. One day, I come home and there is a box of roses on my bed. When I asked my dad if he brought them in my room for me, my dad told me he didn't. We check all the doors and windows, and the latch on my window is broken. Adam broke into my house. We called the cops, but with no proof of it really being Adam, nothing was really done. My older brother takes it into his own hands and threatens Adam, and things cool down for a while. Now, 7 years and a restraining order later, I still get flowers and letters sent to my parents' house occasionally, all sent anonymously, but we all know it's Adam. Story 16. 3 out of 4 conversations with the guy, he's mentioning that his mom abandoned him when he was 6. I suggest therapy, and he says he's over it. But when I reschedule a date, I get a 3-page email from him about trust and abandonment. Yeah, you're all good, bro. Story 17. I was meeting someone for coffee from an online dating site, and I mentioned that he was the first guy I've ever met via an online dating website. He proceeded to ask me how many other dates I had planned for the rest of the day, how many messages I got per week, and how many visitors go to my page. Not a great start to online dating. Story 18. Oh, this is almost 1/3 of my life story. I was engaged to someone 2 years older than me. I met him at 14 and thought he was perfect. Intermittently visited him until I was 18 and going to college, when he told me if I wanted to be with him I needed to be near him. Moved to his city to go to school. We dated for 2 years, then spent almost a year engaged. Called it off about 6 months after my 21st, when a friend basically slapped some sense into me. In addition to what others have said, he made me feel like I was neglecting him and not being a good girlfriend or fiance by going to my college classes or work instead of spending time with him. I lost my scholarship at my university because my grades dropped when I started skipping for him. Even when we lived together, he would complain about not getting enough attention. It was like being engaged to a toddler, except he was already potty trained. I paid all the bills, and my parents helped me because I couldn't support us. He had a job as a server, but I never saw money. After we broke up, I learned he had gambling problems, and guys' night was code for casino. He used his mom to get out of everything. Obligations to volunteer work in a foreign country? Mom buys him a new plane ticket home because he sounds so sad. Join the Air Force and can't handle boot camp? Mom alters his medical records to make it look like he had trauma from a car accident and was never cleared. He was. Upset about me wanting 2 years to save up for a wedding and honeymoon? Mom takes me to dinner, where she spends 4 hours telling me I don't love her son enough, followed by an hour of begging me to marry him and give him a child and her grandkids. He was really good at manipulating emotions. He would lie or cheat or steal from me, and when I would get upset, he'd make it sound unintentional or as though he was doing it for us, or blame it on me for not giving enough love or attention or affection or sex, etc. Typical abusive significant other excuses. Basically, I was dumb and stupid, but I wouldn't trade those years for anything because they taught me so much about myself and what I want from life, and also what red flags and crazy looks and sounds and acts. Story 19. A guy I was casually dating was giving me a lift back to my car after a night hanging with some friends. I got a little turned around as it was an area I wasn't familiar with, and the one-way streets were throwing me off. After driving down 2 streets and not locating my car, he angrily pulled over and told me to just get out. At 2 a.m. in the middle of downtown Los Angeles. Story 20. When I would go out with my friends and get a million, "Oh my god, I miss you, I'm so sad and lonely, I need you back here now" texts, and we lived together. I like some show of affection, but damn, that was smothering. Then, when we broke up, he left me a gift that was a painting of him staring at me while I was sleeping. Nope. Story 21. When guys talk about a future with me on first or second dates. It's happened several times now. I'll casually mention I want to move to New York City one day, and they'll frown and say, but I don't want to. Can we move to X instead? Or talk about how cute our babies would be. Story 22. I had been chatting with a guy a couple of years back. We had set a date to see each other, but a week before I politely canceled. Before I could even say, let's meet up the week after, he started screaming over the phone that he had expected me to bail and that he was so disappointed, but he could have known since I was so pretty, my personality must be terrible. He continued saying he saw a future with me, but now it was all ruined. After only 2 weeks of knowing this guy, I was pretty shocked and very glad he showed his true colors that fast. Big red flag. Story 23. When he started accusing me of having sex with my friends and wouldn't let me have anyone over when he wasn't at home. He calls me at home when he's out of town for work. Him. Who's there? Me. My friend and his friend who's dating my friend. Him. You're probably having a Me. No, we were just hanging out. Him. Come on, I know you're having sex with them. Me. No, really, I'm not. Him. I don't want you having people over when I'm not there. The sad thing is, I thought sacrificing what I wanted for him was an indication of how deeply I loved him. Being raised with all this rubbish about unconditional love, there are basic conditions for how human beings should treat one another that everyone has the right to expect from their partner. Story 24. Takes everything personally. Say, for instance, he invites you somewhere last minute and you decline because you're busy. Rather than, okay, no worries, rain check, it's, why? What are you doing? You're always too busy. You never want to see me. And other such whiny nonsense. Occasionally, it can be playful banter, but most of the time it's just annoying. Play it cool, guys. So I'm getting a lot of replies along the lines of, but you're always flaking. That's frustrating. I agree. But it was not my point. I'm talking about a guy I might be seeing regularly getting pouty or feigning offense if he invites me somewhere last minute and I already have plans. Him saying, you're always too busy, is just hyperbole. Dudes, if a girl never makes any effort to see you, she's just not that into you. Sorry. Story 25. It should have been a big giant red flag when we would text and he would get so furious and call me terrible names and stuff, and then a few days later text me like none of it had happened. We only ever really texted, though we did see each other every once in a while, because I was away at school. But I was young, and now I see how much of a ridiculous red flag it was and how dangerous things could have gotten if we'd gotten into a more serious, in-person relationship. Story 26. Just a good side point. If you're a guy and you catch one of your guy friends pulling some of this red flag borderline psycho shit, it's your responsibility to check that shit, confront your friend, and explain why it isn't okay. There's a huge gulf between rom-com cute pursuit and stalk/possessive abuse, and it happens when we let it happen, and it starts stopping when we start stopping it.